We're here at the Panasonic stand at IFA 2015 and I'm joined by Hollywood colorist Mike Sowa to talk about the new hot topic of the moment, HDR. So Mike, there's been a lot of discussion about HDR and I think a lot of confusion about HDR. Perhaps you could start by just explaining exactly what HDR is.
HDR is high dynamic range. So it's basically, in a nutshell for the consumer, it's a television display with a brighter output, brighter light level. So what that means to me is when I recreate a picture on a television, bringing everything into the world that we're used to. In the days when high dynamic range was first introduced, was a very difficult prospect. There's a nit value, is what they call it. So the first high dynamic range that came out was 4,000 nits. So television displays that are coming out now are in the range of about 1,000 nits. So it's, in the beginning, I was confused. Am I supposed to be recreating a movie at this light level that is almost impossible to look at? Well, that was now, a couple of years ago. What I'm working with now at 1,000 nits is a display that is so phenomenal when put up against what we're used to at 100 nits. Standard television has been 100 nits forever. So put 1,000 nits up against that, the same image. It's like just peeling a layer of film off the image and suddenly it's clear. Because of this extra light level, this extra light intensity, and the high dynamic range resolution of 4K, so you get more detail in the highlights, detail you've never seen before, because it hasn't been able to resolve. But now a light level that's not clipped off at 100 nits, it's actually just like we see with our eyes.
Mike, when you talk about brightness, I'm not just saying that the TV's image is brighter. You're talking about highlights within an image to give you that impact in wider dynamic range. Is that correct?
That's correct. Exactly right. There's detail in the extreme highlights and extreme lowlights that we've never been able to see, just because the resolution hasn't been there. Now we've got 4K, so we get the resolution. Now we get the detail. Within this light level, I can build up contrast in levels of light where you haven't been able to build up contrast in the past without doing special treatment. So, for instance, if you have a huge expansive sky, there's detail in that sky in the extreme background that you've never known was there. We saw it with our eye, but you can't capture it. Well, now it depends on the capture device. If it's in the image, I can display it. And you can see side by side from 100 nits to 1,000 nits, the detail that comes out in that distant sky area it blows my mind that it was ever there and I didn't know. It's an area that I think people will react to positively. Not just the display qualities, but how much more of an image they're going to see.
So that's the bright part of the image, but you also talk about the dynamic range being between dark and light. So when you're mastering at the lower end of the image in terms of blacks and just above blacks and shadow detail, how does that differ now with HDR?
The image starts with black, for me. Starts with 0 black. We bring up the detail from 0 black until we don't get black anymore. That's traditionally how I bring up an image. So with the new high dynamic range, I've got this light intensity that will push through the blacks, but a range that will allow me to keep black. So there's always been this area, let's call it 20% above black, that has been kind of a rough area for displays to actually reproduce. So now with high dynamic range, on the OLED especially, I've got this soft, subtle detail that I've always had to fight to get and keep black. I've always had to compromise a black level to get that detail. Not anymore. I mean, that was the first thing I looked at. That's the first thing I saw that I fell in love with, was this soft detail. So like, let's say a night scene with a key light on a face. Now you've got fall off light, but the fall off light skips over the neck, maybe bounces off the shoulder. There's this area right in here that would just come up completely black, void of detail. So now it's a floating face in the black. I'm getting detail in this area of light and retaining the black, the true black, to a point that I think I've never seen before. It's phenomenal. And I mean, it's all because of this technology coming forward. I couldn't be happier.
When you're actually mastering content, obviously you're trying to capture these subtle details within black themselves. but also some scenes are meant to be completely black. I mean, how is that balancing act between the two, and how can someone set up their television correctly so they still actually appreciate your hard work?
That's what I've been doing with it. Was working in a mode, trying to work in a mode where I'm recreating the exact image I'm used to seeing, whether it's highlight detail or low light detail. When it's displayed, in the cinema mode or whatever, it's actually reproducing exactly what the intention was. I mean, there are areas in black that I don't want anybody to see. There are areas that are meant to be truly black. And in the past, the displays have always lifted the blacks, and it's been I walk around just looking at nothing but gray where there should be black. So now, even in an environment like this with a lot of light, I'm getting a true black and still seeing the detail. And that's that area that people may never even think about, but the filmmakers do, because it's really important. Areas within the eyes, when you have top lighting looking down, this area in the eye, being able to retain the eye detail and see the emotion coming out of an actor, that's what a director's looking for in every scene. But a cinematographer can get that lighting and not have to fight to keep that up. I mean, that type of detail comes through at a light level that HDR is reproducing.
One question that we have been asked is, when some TVs are showing too much detail in blacks, things you're not meant to be seeing, why is that detail even there if you're not meant to be seeing it in the first place?
I don't want to get too technical, but there's a curve value down in the low light area, and I think that they were trying to bring up too much of that detail too fast. So I think what's important is recreating that curve at a level that it was actually meant to be seen at. So that's where that soft detail and true black is. I'm not fighting anything with this set, which I believe they were trying to do, in previous designs of any other manufacturers, trying to force that detail up. But in doing that, you get a very noisy image, or you get an image that's just too harsh in the low lights. I deal in subtle light, so most people don't. Most people just sit down and watch a TV show. I actually analyze every show I watch, and I can't help it.
Mike, when you're mastering something, you're using a specific gamma. Obviously, if someone changes that gamma on their TV, that's going to change the look of what you were mastering in the first place. So can you explain a little bit about what gamma you use when you're mastering, and what people should be doing with their TV when they set it up?
Well, yeah, managing the gamma is always a challenge, because in digital cinema, we deal with a 2.6 gamma. And then home display has always been 2.4 or 2.3, and that's kind of a gray area where manufacturers want a brighter, poppier image because they're trying to attract people to their set. So if you adjust that gamma curve and you make it brighter, you make an area of the picture brighter that was never intended to be bright or be seen, maybe not even seen at all. That takes away the subtlety of the image, and in my world, it breaks the image completely, and it's not what it was intended. So that's always been a struggle, is learning how to manufacture a curve that represents what the intention was when they shot it.
I know you've been actively and intimately involved in the development of the new Panasonic OLED TV. How do you think this television differentiates from all the other televisions on the marketplace?
Well, in every aspect, in black level, black detail, white level, white detail, color balance, color intensity, color saturation. I mean, in every aspect of what I look for, color purity through different levels of light, every aspect, it's blown me away.
Would you say it's the first consumer TV to really deliver a studio experience?
It is. In fact, this is what I'm looking for. This exact set is what I'm looking for as my professional reference display that I'm going to be grading, movies and TV shows on. So it's the same set that a consumer can buy. I mean, that's how good it is.
Mike, when you're creating new HDR versions of movies, you're working from either a digital source or a 35mm print. Can you just explain how 35mm print can give you that dynamic range within an image?
It's still a digital world. So even though that 35mm print, that the classic movie that everybody's used to, is still scanned into a system that I'm going to be grading. So I'm going to be grading it on that display. So it's my job to make sure that that movie is reproduced in a way that the filmmakers intended, or in the way that in a classic movie, maybe the filmmakers are gone. They're not there to actually judge the picture anymore. So I have to rely on old versions, other versions, or people to come in and actually evaluate it who know the film. But it's my job to manufacture an image on any display, whatever display that is, even if it's high dynamic range, I have to create that image. So, and that's been the challenge. But the light levels of high dynamic range have been managed, are getting better and better to a point where that management of the image is becoming easier and easier.
That dynamic range was always there in the original image. We just hadn't been able to see it up until now because the displays weren't capable. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So do you think we can see The Wizard of Oz in HDR?
Eventually you will. I almost guarantee it.
Mike, thank you very much.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you.